Hello, friends. Father Scott Vanderveer here with some reflections on polarization in our culture. Why is it that when we look at nature, everything just feels so harmonious? It feels like it all just is unfolding exactly as it ought to be. But when we think of our human interactions, especially in our political landscape right now, it feels like it's anything but harmony. I recently was watching some footage of the 1968 Democratic National Convention in Chicago, and it proved to me that although that happened before I was born, unrest is not new for our culture. 1968 was a legendary year of unrest. It was unbelievable to watch some footage of Walter Cronkite reporting live from Chicago while there were riots and brutality from the police in the streets. And at the same time, while inside, they were mentioning the deaths of Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy that had just happened earlier that year. It's unbelievable what our country went through at that time. But here we are again at another very difficult juncture. Something very simple I'd like to share with you that brought me some breathing room. You may find will bring you some too. I was at a lecture recently where the topic of polarization was the main attraction. What are we going to do as caring people who want to have harmony with fellow citizens and want to be able to have loving relationships with people with whom we disagree, but feel like the divide is growing so that we almost can't find a way to each other. We've gotten into a cycle where people who think differently than we are demonized by others who think the way we do. And so then we feel like it's actually dangerous for us to have a relationship with someone we love who disagrees with us. It's very difficult times. It's especially hard when it feels like it enters our mind like a virus. So it's hard for us to be able to get the distance from that we want. We want to say, oh, I know better than that. I'm not going to fall into that nonsense. And yet, how do we not? How do we not fall into that when it's just so in our face all the time? Here is a piece of practical advice that gave me the breathing room I promised earlier. I was listening to a couple of journalists talk in a lecture dialogue format about polarization and what to do about it. And one of them said something so simple and so clear and so practical. He said that he was talking to somebody who was so balanced, somebody who didn't seem to be rabidly picking a side in the political debates of our day, who was free to pick and choose which parts of a platform they were interested in. And they were talking about how this person had such balance and such wisdom. And so the journalist speaking said to this person, tell me, what's your daily news source? I'm curious about how you get your information. What is your daily source of news? And this wise person said, I don't watch the news every day. News doesn't happen every day. I watch the news when something newsworthy happens. Do you feel that? Not every day does something newsworthy happen, but every day media outlets need to sell their wares. They need to get our eyeballs on their website or their channel. They need our ratings. So they have to create news. I'm not saying it's all lies. No. But having a bunch of pundits sitting around a table talking about an issue in the news is not news. And a lot of us, if we're honest, are spending a lot of time watching channels that have, now let's get our Washington correspondent in to talk about what he or she thinks about this speech. Now let's get our person in. Now there's some people standing outside. Now, do you see? And so we're getting fed this highly polarized, very adrenaline-producing kind of view that is not helping us. It's not making things happier or healthier or holier in the least. And so we are left asking ourselves, how are we ever going to bridge the divide? Well, this person says, I make room for relationships with everyone by not watching the news all the time. Not only do I have more time for relationships, but I'm not feeding myself a diet of adrenaline that doesn't serve me and isn't news. A lot of us, if we're honest, if we look at it clearly, would be able to say that we're starting to get addicted to rage. We get addicted to it. There's a bumper sticker that I like that says, if you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. I get that. There's something about that I like. It's kind of like when Dorothy Day, servant of God who's on her road to sainthood, once said, the problem is the whole filthy, rotten system. I like that. I think it's true. But we have to live somewhere in the world where, yes, there's a lot of corruption in the world and it really is a filthy, rotten kind of system, the whole thing. And it's the best we've got right now, and we're going to figure out how to live with this. And acknowledging that not every day is a day that Bobby Kennedy is assassinated. Not every day does that happen. On that day in July 1968, there was big news. And there is occasionally big news in our time as well, but not every day. Yet, the news outlets would have us convinced that it's every single day because they need our eyeballs and they need our ratings, they need our clicks, they need our comments. But I don't think we need to help media outlets. We're not in charge of growing their profits or helping their bottom line. We're in charge of making sure that we love God with all of our mind and heart and soul and strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves. That's what we've been charged with doing. Whether these big media outlets make money or not is not our concern. So, how can we detach a bit from the news? How can we let go of our addiction to being enraged all the time? Maybe outrage is not the thing our world needs right now. There's plenty of things that could outrage us, and you have a long list, and they may be the same as the list your neighbor has next door, or they may be different. There may be some overlaps, but there may be some divergences. But wow, God did not command us to agree with each other. God commanded us to love each other. Love the Lord your God with all your mind and heart and soul and strength, we were told, and love your neighbor as yourself. That's enough work for any of us. So let's get to work. And let's put aside whatever is stopping us from focusing on our real job. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining me out here where everything is harmony. And may God bless you and your neighbors now and forever.